Okay, so hopefully by now you have copied down the notes from this slide and are understanding that moss has no lignin and no vascular tissue. Those are the main things to write down about these mosses. They were some of the earliest plants to colonize the land from this aquatic environment. And so they have very primitive structures, and yet they have survived pretty well. They have, like the ferns, something called flagellated sperm, which just means that similar to the algae they evolved from, their sperm has to swim in water to reach the egg. And both ferns and mosses also are going to make spores. And then the other thing, though, that I want you to remember about mosses is they're always really low to the ground. Whenever you see mosses, they're sort of a carpet of moss. Whereas something like a fern might be 3, 4, 5 feet tall, and that's because it has this vascular tissue. And so the vascular tissue is in red in this diagram, and it helps the fern grow taller, and so that's kind of a next step up on this complexity ladder for living in a terrestrial environment. But they still require moisture to fertilize their eggs. The next step up is kind of a double step, and that is exemplified by the conifers, which make seeds and pollen. These are kind of the two new structures. And they still retain the vascular tissue, so they have true roots, just like the ferns. The mosses really don't. The true roots and the vascular tissue help these trees get so much taller. And the seeds help prevent their embryos from drying out. And the pollen, which is now like a sperm suitcase, a sperm case, the pollen keeps the sperm from drying out. And so that is really basically meaning that the sperm are finally liberated from having to travel through water. The sperm case allows sperm to travel on land, or sperm to travel in dry air. In dry air. Go back. Okay, this diagram shows sort of a history of plant evolution. And so again, if we talk about the ancestral green algae, we can kind of see roughly when these first gave rise to the first land plants. And we think it's around 475 million years ago. That always changes because we find new fossils. So it usually, it sort of gets pushed back finding by finding, but that's a pretty good estimate. And then about 50 million years later, that's a long time later, we finally get vascular tissue with the ferns and the club mosses, and we call those plants vascular plants, along with the next big step, which is the seed plants, gymnosperms and angiosperms. And those evolved around 360 million years ago. And so what we want to do now is just kind of take a quick look at each of these major groups of organisms. And the first one we're going to look at are the mosses. And I hope you had a chance to go outside and find mosses. Sometimes they're in your lawn, and sometimes they're on trees, but they're always going to be low to the ground because, again, they don't have the vascular tissue. So I'm hoping you found some. If not, you can still go out and look for them and turn them into me by taking a photograph or searching for an image online and drawing them and turning in those drawings. I'd much rather you go outside, though, if you can safely go outside in this time of coronavirus, do that. And there is a video to watch, which so I'm going to stop here, and you can click through our Canvas site to find this video where you'll see this deep look plants video on mosses. So go ahead and watch that video and answer these questions, and we'll meet back at the end of that.